Always the latest news and views. You're listening to the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
So this is a story you don't hear every day, but then as I read the story, I realized it's not perhaps as unique as you might think. Imagine you're given a diagnosis that your disease is fatal and you should start planning your final days. So what do? You start planning your final days, and different people might treat it in different ways. Our guest, Helene Campbell, is a French-Canadian organ and tissue donation advocate, by the way, went ahead and did just that, planning out those final days, taking those bucket list trips, spending your money, having fun with friends, only to then find out that that initial diagnosis, that fatal diagnosis, had come and gone, leading to the question of, now what? Helene Campbell's on the line. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Can I begin, because I understand your situation is a bit complicated. You had double lung surgery. How did you get to this point where you were told that, this is what you had to look forward to?
Something I should point out as well is I'm still currently in rejection from my organ donor. I received a double lung transplant. I've actually gone through it twice. And the reason I needed a second one was because of rejection.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm experiencing again, and I don't qualify for a third transplant. And so as my body rejects these organs, the way my future looks, it's just getting worse from here on out. So that was the diagnosis, if I can.
Yeah, as awful, as terrible as that must have sounded to you. I should mention, by the way, you're in your 30s, right?
I am. I'm 34.
Okay, which is obviously very, very young, to have gone through these things and then to be dealing with the results after the fact. So let's start with that. First of all, you needed a double lung transplant. As you said, you had it, then you needed a second one. What was the diagnosis for you originally? What had they told you? I
had something called pluriparenchymal fibroelastosis. Say that 10 times fast.
Really?
It was essentially the inflammation and scarring of my lungs and irreversible damage, and the only way to treat that was with a double lung transplant. And we found that out. I had been misdiagnosed with asthma as a child, and so when I was presenting myself with symptoms in my late teens, we just kept pushing it and thinking, it's just asthma, and it turned out not to be asthma. So you can imagine that on celebrating my 20th birthday in Barcelona, and then my 21st birthday, I was intubated, had just received a double lung transplant. Life can change in an instant, and mine did. And then you're told, if I read right, in November of 2022, you're told that you had between 9 and 12 months left to live. That's correct. And if I can ask you, I can't imagine what that must be like to have that as a diagnosis. What did you think? What were you thinking? Well, something, Aaron, that I have dealt with ever since being told about my diagnosis with the pluriparenchymal fibroelastosis one, was that it was a very aggressive disease, and I was basically in a race against the clock, and it was, will I receive this organ in time before my body can no longer, work or breathe. And so really the first time I ever faced this was in November of 2011. That's the first time I had that reality check of, wow, I'm going to have to move to a different city to be placed on a wait list, to wait for a call for the perfect match to come in. And if that doesn't happen and I run out of time, that's it. And so I have had time to deal with this reality. And I'm still here. So it turned out really great for me with the organ donation. I'm so grateful to be here. But when I heard that diagnosis in 2022, it hit me so differently because I'm in such a different place now. Who I am, what I love, the people around me, I just feel like I have so much more to lose. And so, yes, I may have faced mortality more than once, but this time it was definitely like a rude awakening, in a sense, because I think it just gave me the gift of a really important question. which was my life a complete success?
Was your life a complete success? Measured how?
Yeah. By happiness, for me, for what I felt. Actually, that's not true. There is a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's called Success, and it's a great message about what success is, and I really firmly believe what he says. But it's like to laugh often and much, to win the affection of friends, to endure false betrayal. I mean, it's really great, and I'm not going to do it justice. But the very last sentence of that is, to know one life has breathed easier because you've lived. This is to have succeeded. And that message made such an impact on me when I first read that quote years ago. And so that's how I measure success. And so, yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, I wonder too. So having gone through this, I mean, that was 2022. It's now 4 years later. And what I read originally was, when I introduced our interview, was, someone gives you that diagnosis. You're like, you know what? It's time to go big or go home, because sooner or later you're going to be going home. So you go out and you do all this stuff. And, you're with friends and you travel and you take cruises. And then it's like, okay, I had a sort of a schedule here, and now I've done what I had to do and I'm still alive, which begs the question, then what?
Right, and I truly believe I'm still alive because I lived my best life doing exactly what I wanted to do. I had set my goals, my priorities, tried to cut all the fluff out of my life, and I truly believe that really helped me keep going. Yeah. And it's a really strange question to have to ask yourself.
I imagine.
Okay, I'm still here. What do I do now?
Yeah. I'm still here. What do I do now? I can't imagine what that must be like. I wonder now at this stage, you mentioned off the top, you're still waiting. Who knows what's going to happen? How do you live your life now? You're obviously living day to day. You've kind of reached a point where you're satisfied with what you've done. What's it like?
You know what? I still don't feel fully satisfied with what I've done. And I think it's because right now, as I'm not working and I'm not doing things, I'm not feeling like I'm helpful. Like I'm not feeling like I'm contributing and being a part of something. And I think that to me is really where I find worth and value, I guess. No, that's not the right word.
No, but it is. But it is, right? And satisfaction as well. Yes.
And I realize the importance of connection and, just loving others and being with others. And that sounds really like cheesy and lovey-dovey, but I just feel that like we're better for it when we live like that.
And you have family still?
I do. And that's another thing too. My family's growing. I have 2 nephews now. So it just feels like I don't want to leave. I want to see them graduate, and I want to see them do this. So like anytime we had family gatherings in that year of 2022 to like 2023, every time I had such great times, but my heart was breaking at the same time because I was so sad that I was going to be missing out. And so it was a really strange place to be in, to be like, okay, enjoy this. Like really savor this, this is going to be maybe your last this, that, and the other thing. But then also because of that, feel heartbroken, and to have both those emotions at the same time.
Such a crazy story. I don't think anyone can imagine what it is to be in that situation until you are. And I mentioned off the top, by the way, I should point out, your story, as unique as it is really not, because there are other people mentioned who've gone through the same thing, right?
Yeah, I am not alone, and no one really talks about this. But yeah, I'm not alone. There's so many people. I actually was part of a palliative care program where we would meet once a week to kind of talk about what we're living through, and we would do this art therapy because we're all in the same boat. It kind of feels like, we've been shipwrecked. We're all living different things, but like can relate on some sort of trauma, and we don't really know, are we going to be okay? Are we not? We lost a lot of friends just suddenly. Like, it's a really tough space to be in, but there's also so much beauty, and there is a privilege in knowing, or maybe a privilege in asking yourself that question. It's that. makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I wish we had more time. I have to wrap up. I want to thank you so much. I was going to ask if you're in touch with any of these people, because it seemed that'd be kind of a natural friendship to establish. Someone else has gone through what you've gone through. But, you did at the outset, I guess. Do you still have those relationships now?
Yes, I do.
That's great.
In fact, one of the individuals in the article, Diane, she's one of the people I met at that palliative care group.
Listen, I wish you all the best, which sounds an odd thing to say to someone who's been through so much, or as much as you have, but I hope we can chat again.
I really appreciate you talking, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
For the
Helene
opportunity.
I can't thank you enough. Helene Campbell. Story might be worth reading, even, if you can find it. More of it was in the Globe and Mail, and it's just, it's one of those crazy things in life.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.
Right?
The information and the interesting talk to follow. This is the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
So I remember we teased this on Friday, and I thought this is interesting because I kind of didn't see this coming. But if you've not been paying attention, it turns out Canadians are drinking less. In fact, it's the biggest drop in alcohol sales here in this country in 20 years. You can't even blame this on COVID. 20 years, haven't seen numbers this low. So try to find out why. Rod Phillips is professor of history at Carleton University, specializing, believe it or not, in the history of alcohol, which has got to be a lot of fun. Mr. Phillips, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
My pleasure, Aaron.
As a student of alcohol history, were you surprised to discover this?
I'm not too surprised. This is sort of the fourth year in a row that people have been drinking less in Canada. And also, we know from looking internationally that drinking has gone down in Europe, in the United States, in China, many parts of the world, people are drinking less. So, Canada's part of this bigger trend.
I think maybe when we look at something like this, when you see that consumption of anything has gone down, the first thing you think of is, well, of course, it must be more expensive. People, are having a tougher time. But it turns out, if I read the article right, the price of, alcohol, of liquor has only gone up 1.6%. So what explains this then?
Well, I think one of the things, to start off with is that it's younger people who are drinking less. That is to say, they're drinking more or less, if you know what I mean, than older people, and it's younger people that are driving these numbers. So we have to look at, what it is about younger people and alcohol. And I think the evidence is that it's health concerns. I mean, we know that alcohol is not good for you. I mean, people can argue about, how much you should drink, whether it's two servings a week or 2 servings a day or whatever. But we know that, alcohol just isn't good for you. And we've known this for some time. And I think young people are just much more receptive to that kind of messaging than older people, particularly, I think, after COVID. I mean, it's not, COVID didn't start this off, but I think people have become more health conscious since COVID. And younger people are just, who have a short career of drinking or haven't started drinking, are just going to decide not to drink, or they're going to drink less. And it's easier for them, say, than for people like me, who have decades of drinking behavior behind me. It's much more difficult for people of my age to reduce the drinking or to stop drinking entirely.
Is it then to that degree generational? I mean, in the sense that you're saying older people not changing habits as quickly, but we tended to think of that younger generation kind of overdoing it, right? A generation ago anyway. They're the ones who drank us under the table.
Well, I think you're right. See, a generation ago, I think you're right. We've seen this huge change in the last, 5 to 10 years or so in attitudes towards drinking by younger people. So, my students, for example, at Carleton, who are, about 20 years old, are not drinking that much. If I look at, my students 10 years ago, 20 years ago, from what I know and from the stats, they were drinking a lot more. And certainly, when I was a student, we drank a lot. So, there has been this generational change.
Well, what happened to Dr. Oz saying that, he understands it's a social lubricant? Are we looking for social lubricants, Mr. Phillips?
We are looking for social lubricants, but it's not in alcohol. And I think they're looking for social lubricants just in, interactions. I mean, one of the things we're seeing is, the decline of alcohol-fueled parties and gatherings. This whole idea that you have to have alcohol there to lubricate social interactions and to have a good time, that's starting to disappear. And now you see in Europe, I'm seeing it in China and in other places, you're seeing early morning parties. So people are going dancing at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they're going to work, or then they're going to school, and they're not drinking. If they're drinking anything, I expect
they're drinking coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and this whole decline of late-night activities, which we're seeing everywhere as well, that's going to lead to a decline in alcohol consumption.
By the way, is this across the board? I mean, when we're talking about alcohol, beer, wine, and spirits, or are any of them holding up?
Well, certainly beer has gone down. Wine is going down.
Really?
Spirits may be holding up because people, cocktails are very good. But, the big growth is in non-alcoholic drinks. So de-alcoholized beer, de-alcoholized wine, and then non-alcoholic cocktails. That's where the growth is.
And that would, I imagine, be less expensive as well. If you're not paying for the actual alcohol, right, for the spirits, that would be a less expensive.
Well, that's the funny thing. It's not that much.
It's not?
It's a little less expensive, but not much, because actually you have to make the wine and then you have to take the alcohol out. So it's another step, and the same with the beer. So when I look at the cost of de-alcoholized wine, I'm kind of shocked. I was at first shocked to see that it's costing about the same as the alcoholic wine.
Not that I'm interested, but asking for a friend. For these de-alcoholized wines, are they as good taste-wise, texture-wise, as the real wines from major producers?
I think everyone would say no, they're not, but they're getting better. I mean, I've tasted some recently, and they're not too bad. The ones I tasted maybe 5-10 years ago I thought they were awful, quite frankly. But I think they're getting around to figuring out how to make a de-alcoholized wine. And to replace the texture, it's a lot of its texture, and also a little bit of flavor that the alcohol gives to the wine. So it's improving. Wait a couple of years and try again.
Oh, great. I was going to ask, by the way, if this is a trend, right? If we're looking at this happening and the numbers are as low as they are now, do you see this heading the same direction? And maybe it's not a fair comparison as cigarette smoking back in the day.
Yeah, I think there's a comparison to make there. I mean, it's always risky to predict the future, but this is the fourth year that alcohol consumption has declined in Canada, and it's not just a 1-year blip. So it looks like a trend. And if younger people today who are not drinking because of health concerns, they're not going to start drinking because there's going to be no medical evidence that alcohol is good for you, I'm sure. And so if they don't start drinking more, and then the generation that comes up after them also adopt the same kind of attitude, then you're going to have, a number of age cohorts that are not drinking. Whereas I'm a baby boomer, people of my age who have been, drinking healthily not healthily, but drinking more, drinking well, for decades, we're going to die. And our drinking patterns are going to disappear with us. So, I think we're in for a long-term shift here.
I think you may have left out one part, which is when these younger generation, when these younger types eventually become, middle-aged and realize, oh my God, I need a drink. That may change at that point. So maybe that's what we have to look forward to.
Who knows?
I thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate it.
Aaron, it's a pleasure.
Take good care. Rod Phillips over at Carleton University.
The news and narrative on demand. It's the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
All right, we say good afternoon to Carmi Levy, our CTV tech analyst. And Carmi, story generating a lot of buzz. And I actually brought this up to listeners as well a little earlier on. This settlement yesterday, jury verdict rather, in LA against Meta and YouTube, finding them liable as far as social media addiction is concerned. So just can you fill in sort of the blanks on this one so we have a better understanding of what this means?
Yeah, this all has to do with a woman who's now 20 years old. Her name is Kaylee. She started using both Meta's products, Facebook and Instagram, as well as YouTube, and TikTok and Snapchat when she was 6 years old. And she launched a lawsuit against these companies, claiming that they damaged her mental health, that she now suffers from anxiety, suicidal ideation, depression, and that it all correlates to her use of these platforms, and that they were specifically designed without appropriate protections in place, that they exposed her deliberately to these kinds of risks. And so what's important here, she's won $3 million in compensatory damages, still waiting on a punitive damage number. It'll probably be larger. But this singular case is the first of an expected thousands of them, of plaintiffs who basically allege the same thing. And the fact that the companies have lost it, they say they'll appeal, but the fact that they've lost it now gives power to all of those other cases in court to essentially move forward, and also sets the stage for others who might have been on the sidelines thinking, should I sue or should I not? Well, now they're going to sue. It puts the social media industry on notice. You designed these tools specifically knowing that it would harm its users, particularly young users. Now you have to pay the price.
So I asked the question, I'm going to bring this up again later in the show when we ask it. You mentioned the girl in this case was 6 years old, to which people say, what was the 6-year-old doing with this, to begin with, right?
Yeah, and it's a reasonable question to ask, because we know that the minimum age on all of these tools, and in fact, the minimum age for using social media in Canada by law is 13. And so clearly she was using it against the terms of service. And it's a reminder to us that this case notwithstanding, digital safety for kids, for teenagers, isn't just the responsibility of the technology platforms. Yes, they have to design them to be safer. Yes, they have to design them to be less addictive and harder for predators to target our kids and all of those things. But digital safety starts and frankly ends at home. It's up to mom and dad and caregivers to make sure that they're communicating with their kids to ensure that they're using these tools in a safe and effective manner. And so shared responsibility here. This time the industry now takes it on the chin, but that does not absolve mom and dad from their responsibilities. Parents, if you're not having these conversations with your kid, consider this outcome, this verdict, as a reminder that maybe now's the time to do just that.
Let me move on to the next story. Apple confirming, because, apparently ads are going to be everywhere in our world. Even their apps feature, or their maps feature in their app is going to start showing users? Or showing ads? I'm sorry. I can't speak English today.
No worries. So the good news here is that, you're not going to see ads while you're navigating in the car. It's not going to be that intrusive. It's only when you're searching for something. So let's say you're searching for a restaurant near you, or, a coffee shop in your neighborhood. You'll see sponsored listings that show up at the top of the list of results that come back. And you'll see a little label next to it that says ad. Or sometimes when you see businesses on the map itself, as you're kind of searching around looking for things, the businesses that have bought ads, they might appear a little bit larger, maybe in a different color. The pin will be more obvious. And so it just allows businesses to kind of claim their real estate in the map environment, but it's not going to be as obtrusive as, say, it is on other apps. And a good guide here is if you've ever used Google Maps, which of course is Apple Maps' direct competitor, they introduced ads a couple of years ago, and it's the same thing. You really have to look to find them, and frankly, I use it all the time, and I almost barely notice it. So Apple, this is just another way for them to, generate revenue from their services company, for their services business. And let's face it, it's pretty expensive providing those services. You got to drive around with cars taking imagery, manage all that satellite data and all that stuff. So it's a pretty decent deal. From the looks of it, and it's not going to be all of that annoying. A good guide here is take a look at the Apple App Store. The kinds of ads that are already on that platform. That's what Apple Maps is going to look like. And frankly, most people aren't even aware that there are ads on the App Store. So I think we're in good shape.
I'm glad when you clarified I wasn't going to be at you while you were driving, just showing you different ads. So, okay. Then you have a story here, with all the electronics in cars nowadays, and I forgot about this, but a cyber attack on a breathalyzer company that has a device that goes in your car. What happened here?
This is a company called Intoxilock, and so basically it's a breathalyzer. You blow into it, and if you have not been drinking, you're allowed to start the car and go driving. Every few months, they're connected devices, and they have to connect with the mothership, with the cloud, with their service to calibrate themselves. And if you don't calibrate every few months, the breathalyzer stops working. You can't drive your car. Well, wouldn't you know it, the company had a cyber attack. And unfortunately, those online services aren't available. There are people on the road who cannot authenticate now. They can't calibrate their system. So their cars are basically sitting by the side of the road and they can't be used. Companies doing everything they can to recover from the cyber attack. But this is a reminder that as we become increasingly connected, we see that services that we thought would always be there, sometimes they're not going to be there. And it's maybe something to keep in mind. Maybe you shouldn't be drinking and driving in the first place, but if you have been, it's a question to ask before they install this thing on your vehicle.
Then again, it does disable the car, so maybe that's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. It keeps people who maybe shouldn't be driving off the road
in the
anyway,
first place,
so I guess we're all safer.
You got a story here on Amazon. This is interesting because, nowadays when we talk smartphones, it's either an Apple iPhone or it's Samsung. I think they pretty much own the largest share of the market. Why is Amazon trying to get back in the business?
They tried in 2014. So 12 years ago, they introduced something called the Amazon Fire Phone, and that was supposed to make it easier to buy stuff from Amazon, really kind of the e-commerce shopping experience brought to your smartphone. Within 6 months, it was clear that this thing was absolutely not selling. Nobody wanted it. It was a clunky phone. It was almost like the technology simply couldn't support that very ambitious mission, and nobody bought it, and they canceled it. And so now here we are 12 years later. They have a program, and they're calling it Transformer, and basically they're going to use the AI-powered version of Alexa to help you buy more stuff on Amazon. So it sounds very familiar to the Fire Phone. Not quite sure if people are willing to give up their iPhones and their Android devices for this. I don't think the world was asking for an Amazon phone. Basically, the only way that I think a lot of people would give up their existing phone is if Amazon gave it away for free. But even then, it's a really big lift for people. It's a major change for folks to ask. And even though Amazon may be the world's largest e-retailer, I just don't see this thing succeeding.
How hard is it just to go to Amazon on your phone in a browser?
It isn't, and that's the thing. I think most of us, if you're an Amazon customer, you already have the Amazon app on your phone. You're already used to using it on your device. And maybe it could be a little bit more streamlined. Maybe the AI could be a bit better. Maybe you could talk to it with Alexa Plus. Maybe that's the value proposition of this Transformer phone. But frankly, I'm not giving up my iPhone for this. And I'm perfectly happy with the Amazon app as it is. Okay. And I don't think I'm alone. It's a problem no one's asking for.
Yeah, there you go. Solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And your last story, judge says witness wore smart glasses to sneakily inform their testimonies. This was in court?
It was in a British court, the Insolvency and Companies Court, and the guy who was lodging the claim, he was on the witness stand wearing a pair of smart glasses, and somebody was talking him through, because you can hear it in the smart glasses, but unfortunately the Bluetooth connection to this guy's phone somehow got interrupted during his testimony. People were already commenting, something looks really off. He looks like he's being coached. He doesn't seem to be speaking naturally. And then all of a sudden, the voice, instead of coming out of his smart glasses, started coming out of his smartphone on the speakerphone for everyone to hear. The judge was obviously not very happy, stopped proceedings, not quite sure if this guy is going to win his case now.
There you go. Try to sneak in his smart glasses. Carmi Levy, Carmi, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Your city at your leisure. This is the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand.
There has been a lot of talk, a lot of it lately. I think people forgot about this when the idea was first announced of a new airport for Montreal. It is going to be called the Montreal Metropolitan Airport. As I said, we may have been talking about this for a while, but we are now just a couple of months away from actually having it come online, as they say, with domestic flights. Porter Airlines, notably, the first major airline that will be flying domestically from there. Michael Deluce is president and CEO of Porter. He is on the line. Mr. Deluce, thanks for your time.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Let's get into, first of all, the investment here. I think people may have misunderstood just how significant an investment this is and how big an airport this may turn out to be over time. So what was Porter's investment in here, and what do you project this thing to kind of develop into over the course of a couple of years?
Yeah, this is a major investment into airport infrastructure in the Montreal area. It's about a $400 million investment. to complete a brand new state-of-the-art terminal, which was announced and launched to media back on Tuesday of this week. It really is an airport terminal that's going to transform travel in Montreal. The airport benefits from over 50% of the residential population of Montreal have a shorter drive time to get to the Met than the alternative airport. But once you get to the Met, that's where it really starts getting interesting. The airport has been designed much like Billy Bishop in Toronto, but even better as a business lounge environment for all passengers, regardless of who you fly with and what fare you pay. You're effectively in a comfortable, spacious business lounge environment. And as well, you save a lot of time on the ground. The walks are short from curb to your aircraft. Getting out of the taxi to your plane, is a very short walk, and it makes it very easy for people to travel. And we announced 12 new destinations that will all be launched on June 15th, coast to coast, domestic destinations ranging from Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, out to Toronto, both airports, Halifax, Charlottetown, and St. John's. And so it's been a major launch, and we're very excited about it.
So I would ask, first of all, for people who don't know, from what the briefing was, we're talking about here about handling up to 4 million passengers a year. So this is not as small as I think a lot of people thought, just a regional airport. I think many people thought this was just a matter of, if you wanted to go from Montreal to Toronto, here's an option for you. You mentioned 12 destinations, including Vancouver. I would ask, does that mean, because people complain about flying in this country, that it's so expensive to fly just within Canada? Does this mean prices will come down?
Absolutely. Demand has always been strong in Montreal, but there's limited options for travel, and obviously the existing airport serving the community is infrastructure constrained, and so fares are naturally high. Now, when you introduce the Met and Porter's significant service, so 12 destinations, all starting in the first week of operations, June 15th, and we're operating 138 weekly flights. It more than doubles Porter's presence in the Montreal marketplace. With the more than half of that served from the new Met airport. We'll continue serving from YUL. Obviously, that has its own catchment area, and we have a very important partnership with Air Transat, a joint venture. But the Met will transform how people travel in the Montreal marketplace, no different than how Billy Bishop in Toronto did back 20 years ago. And it will result in lower fares. And if you actually typically, when an airline like Porter or any airline announces new service, as we just did for June 15th onwards, you have initial promotional fares as well in the market. So there's no better time than to look at fares on flyporter.com, look at the Met as an option to travel and really experience what this very unique, incredible. It's going to be the envy of the country, and it will be the talk of the town in Montreal once we get started June 15th.
Well, that's a big promise. I know you called it Billy Bishop on steroids. For people who haven't flown into Billy Bishop, of course, the great part is you can literally walk out of that airport and you're in downtown Toronto. It's not going to be quite the same in St. Hubert, though.
Correct. The Met, is conveniently located for more than half of the Montreal population that lives there. But for traffic coming from outside of Montreal into Montreal to visit, it's equal travel time to downtown Montreal than the existing airport. And so you layer on the ground time in the taxi or a car or Uber. But where we really shine and enhance is everything that happens at the airport is streamlined and seamless and easy. You walk in, there's no security lines. You're immediately at the gate. Comfortable environment. It will be unlike anything the Montreal marketplace has seen in decades.
I would ask this, something you said a moment ago. That was going to be my next question. Does this preclude you from flying from Porter, flying out of Trudeau? And you said, no, you'll still maintain that service.
Yeah, there's 2 airports serving Montreal as of June 15th. And many great cities around the world of size like Montreal are served by multiple airports. Montreal is now going to be served by multiple airports. And typically what happens is you sort of split the population. People gravitate towards the airport that's most convenient to them. No different than in Toronto with Billy Bishop and Pearson, or if you're in New York and you're looking at Newark, LaGuardia, or JFK, the residents of those cities have a far preferred airport, and that's generally the only airport they would travel from. And if you live in the Montreal area and you're 5 minutes away from the Met, that will be your preferred airport of choice. You're not going to end up driving 50 or 60 minutes across traffic to get to YUL. And so each airport will have its own catchment area. The Met benefits from a very attractive catchment area, but Dorval or YUL still has a very strong catchment area, and we will continue serving both great airports in the Montreal marketplace as we go forward. And so nothing changes with our YUL service. We still operate a wide range of domestic destinations, and as well we offer flights to Florida and to Bahamas. Those are all doing very well, and they all are important partnership flights with Air Transat. So we'll continue serving both, but this is a more than doubling of our overall presence in the Montreal marketplace.
So you mentioned earlier when I said, does this mean there'll be lower cost? You talked about, of course, at the beginning, there'll be promotional fares. Fly Montreal to Vancouver. Once you're flying out of Montreal, out of the Met, what will that cost? I'm asking not specific day, but I mean in general. How much less will that cost now than it did if you were flying out of Trudeau?
Well, today, when we look at the comparison of the market fares out of YUL to Vancouver versus what we've introduced in the marketplace, you're saving about 30%, which is significant when you're traveling. And so you're going to see the Met become a top 10 Canadian airport as far as traffic within the first few years. Guaranteed.
Is there ultimately a plan to fly beyond just domestically here? Or is that not part of the plan?
So today the airport is a domestic-only airport, and that's because YUL actually has an exclusive right to international traffic. Now, that's something that was agreed to 40 years ago, but it exists today. Today we're focused on launching these 12 destinations in June domestically. And of course, if the airport is loved by the community and passengers and politicians and others want us to look at expanding into New York or Florida or the Caribbean, Mexico, we can easily do that with our aircraft and really provide even more travel options for Montrealers in the marketplace. And ultimately, it's something that ADM should look at, because this will relieve pressure on the airport that's already at a significant infrastructure limitation. And ultimately, we're all here just to serve the community. And if you live 5 minutes away from the Met, why would you drive 50 minutes across town to get to New York? That makes no sense.
Last question. One of the other things I guess that I'm trying to figure out here as well is this is not just about small planes. I think, again, most people thought these will be smaller planes. You can actually run jets out of the new airport, right? Bigger jets.
Yeah, absolutely. Porter, back in 2023, started a significant expansion across North America from Eastern Canada, including Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax. And we purchased up to 100 Embraer E195 E2 jet aircraft. It's a 132-seat. It's the most state-of-the-art narrow-body aircraft. It is the quietest aircraft that you can fly in a narrow-body. We have no middle seat, so you can fly on Porter, a 5-hour flight to Vancouver, and you're never worried about, am I going to be in the middle seat? One thing everyone agrees on in air travel is everyone hates a middle seat. We have no middle seats.
I will let our listeners, though, by the way, have to wrap up here. The symbol for the new Metropolitan Airport is YHU, if you were planning on going and booking anything. And as you're suggesting, maybe sooner rather than later, the way things are going would be a good idea. Mr. Deluce, I thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Listen live to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand. Weekdays from 2 until 6. Miss something? Find on-demand highlights at CJAD800.com or on the free iHeartRadio app. iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.